During shooting for the 2008 war satire Tropic Thunder, Robert Downey Jr. would sit for 2 hours, most mornings, to have blackface makeup applied in order to portray the character of Sergeant Lincoln Osiris. Conceived by brilliant screenwriters, with buy-in from everyone, from cast and crew to the studio, the character teems with clever ironies, is uniquely meta, well acted by Downey Jr., who earned an Academy Award nomination, and is, all in all, one of modern cinema's greatest comedic characters. Unfortunately, there's little chance Tropic Thunder would be greenlit by any studio today, because they, vast swaths of people on social media, and opinion editorialists writing for online magazines would deem the film problematic at best and offensive at worst, disregarding any motivations, layering, irony, or the sympathetic, educated, liberal, and well-intentioned backgrounds of the writers, and instead remaining inflexibly focused on taking the character, literally, at face value. The film's basic premise is that a group of spoiled and pampered actors are filming a Vietnam epic, and through a misunderstanding, when their director is accidentally blown up in front of them whilst on location in the jungle, they come to believe they are being prompted to adapt to the wild and to fulfill a mission at the center of the plot, using their own initiative, also assuming, wrongly, that secret cameras are filming them to obtain authentic and gritty footage. It is in this environment of farce, make-believe, and misinterpretation that we are introduced to Robert Downey Jr.'s Lincoln Osiris, a gruff black sergeant. Were this the limit of the characterization, a lot of the criticism of Downey's blackface would be valid. But there is a clever conceit where Downey Jr.'s character is actually another character. Underneath the blackface, Jr. is playing Kurt Lazarus, a high-strung Daniel Day-Lewis-style method actor from Australia who will go to any lengths, no matter how absurd, to inhabit a role, undergoing what a voiceover in the film describes as a controversial skin pigmentation procedure in order to assume the appearance of the real-life African-American soldier Lincoln Osiris. Kurt Lazarus is so psychologically embedded in the character of Sergeant Osiris that he begins to lose all sense of his actual identity, and clever scenes play out where neither we nor Lazarus are quite sure if he is acting with self-awareness of any kind, or if he is unbound entirely, so that when he takes offense at being referred to as "you people," or chastises the actual black soldier in the group for not showing enough resistance to slurs, there's a crazy and incredibly sophisticated ambiguity on screen. When he is asked why he is still in character, he says with childish idiocy, "I know, but I don't have to tell you," and says later, "I don't drop character until I've done the DVD commentary." Lazarus's gruff demeanor becomes a brilliantly conceived and executed deadpan. The character is also made acceptable by the wider conceit of the film, his layering as part of a storyline where nothing is really as it seems. For much of the film, the characters believe they are inhabiting a landscape where other people are actors, placed for their benefit, to heighten the realism of their performances. The whole film, then, is an elaborate funhouse full of distorting mirrors. The characterization isn't offensive or problematic because it is clearly and cleverly undermining the pretensions of a white actor who might conceivably be so entitled and tone-deaf as to accept and try to inhabit such a role. Downey Jr.'s exaggerated, cliched mannerisms and voice technique emphasize this absurdity, as does his dialogue. The dynamic between him and a disgruntled and incredulous actual black soldier in their fake platoon further shields the character from criticism, because the black character in these exchanges is the sympathetic and sensible one, suffering his co-star's presumption and poking holes in the flaky psychological exterior of his histrionic method acting. Still, however, criticism of the character persists online, and intelligent people fret about it or give some tedious preamble to their experience of watching the film. The great shame of this is that liberalism, traditionally, has always encouraged intellectual savviness, audacity, witty creative subversion, irony, and satire. But in the modern age of identity politics, in which everything is strictly and stridently contextualized, there is a vocal and influential minority of posters and critics, for whom anything that could be seen as problematic, no matter its intentions, is problematic. The rationale being that any form of satire coming from a privileged position and involving a marginalized group must automatically be improper, vulgar, and undermining. Any depiction of such a group that plays to stereotypes in any way that could be construed as negative, in their view, might possibly perpetuate those stereotypes or be triggering. In short, to them, something as starkly confrontational as blackface has no place anywhere, comes from a place of prejudice and suffering, and ought to be eradicated out of every part of the culture, even in a sharply clever satirical film, no matter the motivations or context. In this era of hypersensitivity, it is very important that we defend Robert Downey Jr.'s character for what it is, a hilarious indictment of the pretentiousness of Hollywood, the ridiculous self-importance of its actors, the tropes, cliches, testosterone and machismo of action films, and the soulless greed of the production companies. Targets for satire that liberals, that everyone, ought to support. There is a scene towards the end of the film where the platoon has to infiltrate a village in the jungle full of machine gun-wielding guards in order to rescue Ben Stiller's character, the fading action star Tug Speedman, who signed up for the picture in an effort to resuscitate and lend some gravitas to his career. Downey Jr.'s character comes up with a plan to infiltrate the village by pretending to be a local peasant who was captured an American, in actual fact another member of their platoon who has been stripped to his underwear and tied across a water buffalo. In order to ingratiate himself with the leader of the village, absurdly a small teenage boy, Downey Jr.'s character tries and hilariously fails to talk in the local dialect. Here then is the meta-nature of this character, something unprecedented in its layering, irony, and execution. The real actor, Robert Downey Jr., is playing an acclaimed Australian actor, Kurt Lazarus, who was playing African-American Sergeant Lincoln Osiris, who was pretending to be a Southeast Asian peasant. No character in modern cinematic satire comes close to that for cleverness, build-up and payoff, an actor at the top of his game, and audacity of conception. A little later he shouts, "I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude." The character is also responsible for one of the most controversial quotes in modern cinema. When Tug Speedman is lamenting the failure of his previous role in a film called Simple Jack, where he played a catastrophically vulgar character with learning difficulties, Downey Jr.'s Sergeant Osiris levels with him about his mistake and its implications for Speedman's ambitions to win an Oscar. Everybody knows you never go full retard. As grotesque as this is, it is, again, motivated by something more sophisticated. It is an indictment of Hollywood and its codes, etiquette, and the use of legitimate intellectual handicaps or marginalization as a means to attain professional credibility. Towards the end of the film, Osiris finally enters into a kind of fugue state. His character breaks down, and previous characters come psychologically spilling out. A priest, Neil Armstrong, until he, as Kurt Lazarus, in an Australian accent, finally murmurs, "I think I might be nobody." Not only is this funny for its meta-elements and delivery, it also hammers home the emptiness and narcissism behind cultural appropriation and white actors cluelessly sidelining legitimate representative actors. The script makes sure to expose Lazarus so the audience can be left in no doubt as to who is being satirized and why. Thus far, Downey has always defended the role and hasn't succumbed to any notion that he might have to account for himself for portraying a character that could be labeled problematic. Let's hope he continues to do so, and that the current cultural tensions abate at least a little, so that a new generation can discover and enjoy this unique, brilliant character, one of the most hilarious in the modern age of cinema.